Hello there gorgeous gamers and welcome back to Pure Play TV for another video review, and this one is for Cyberpunk 2077. I know, a bit taboo now innit? At the time of this video going live, Cyberpunk 2077 has been pulled from the PlayStation Store, so the only way to get the game on PlayStation is to buy the disc copy. On Xbox it's still available digitally, and on PC things are much better, obviously. This review will cover the game on PS4 and PS5, with the final score being awarded based on playing on PS5. A review code was provided by the publisher. The launch of Cyberpunk 2077 is yet another example of the vast difference between hype and reality. For 8 years, gamers have been dreaming about a transcendent experience that would change the way we play video games. Or, at the very least, as developer CD Projekt Red once explained it, a mature RPG for mature players. It's no secret that the game as it stands now did not hit those marks, but it doesn't have to be the best thing since Mario dropped into his first pipe for you to have fun in Night City. Is it worth playing now in its current state, or is this a journey best left for 2078 at the earliest? Let's find out. Before we do though, please do us a solid and hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and give the bell a little tickle so you're the first to know when we've got new stuff. Cheers my dears. I'm not going to waste anybody's time talking about story arcs, gameplay mechanics, or the soundtrack at the top of this review. Oh, I will get there, but first, we're going to talk about bugs, because depending on which system you're playing this on, Cyberpunk 2077 has more bugs than a neglected trailer house down at the Shady Pines trailer park out on the edge of town. I played through the prologue on my PS4, and I currently have just shy of 25 hours on my PS5. On the latest gen PlayStation, Cyberpunk 2077 has been an absolute blast to play, despite the myriad of problems. In those 25 hours, it's crashed 4 times, sending me back to the start screen. All 4 times restarting the game has taken me back to within seconds of where I left off, so it's not ideal, but it could be a lot worse. I've also seen numerous times where it's taken a few seconds for objects on the screen to load. Signposts, cement barriers, and once or twice, a character's face. That last one is unsettling to say the least, and it's probably happening more than I've noticed, but it's only been obvious a handful of times. More noticeable is the trouble during conversations. A couple of times I've experienced 2 characters speaking over each other during a conversation, making it impossible to follow along. It usually stops after a sentence or 2, but it's still frustrating. And one time I accidentally killed an honest, hard-working streetwalker who walked through my car while it was parked on the sidewalk. The problem was that she stopped walking and simply stood there while still inside my car, so when I drove off it tore her apart. I've seen a lot of things in my time in Night City, and I'm still thinking about this poor girl. There have been more instances like this, but they come and go so fast that they never really take me out of the game. It's no secret that Cyberpunk 2077 is currently in a rough shape on PS4. The most common and troublesome issue for me is the stuttering and freezing. Plus, the textures not fully loading in a normal amount of time is exponentially worse on PS4. I've noticed on both consoles that the game doesn't consistently register certain button commands either. Nothing super critical here, but while driving, pressing the left directional button should change the view from first to third person. It does, eventually, but only after pressing 4 or 5 times. It's the same with the sliding button. While running, you can slide to a stop. It's a useless mechanic that is only good for making you feel like a badass during combat, which is to say, it's very important and something I use constantly. This sliding mechanic simply doesn't work for roughly a third of the time. These glitches and more plague both PlayStation consoles, but they haven't detracted from my enjoyment of the newest gen version of the game. It's totally worth playing now, but I don't feel the same way about the PS4. If that is your only avenue to play the game, I would wait until it's fixed, whenever that will be. As always, your mileage may vary. Each person is different after all, and we all have our own different tolerance for such things. With that behind us, let's talk about the game. At the start, you'll need to choose your character's backstory from 3 different options: Nomad, Street Kid, or Corpo. These options will change your story, most significantly the long prologue portion of the game. I chose the Street Kid, but if I play it again, I'd go with the Nomad. After this, you'll have a robust character creator that has all the options you've come to expect of the genre, plus a few awkward additions. I'm happy to say that your days of playing with the wrong areola size are finally over. I don't think it's the mature RPG that we heard about all those years back. It is, however, an RPG with adult themes, a well-written story, some razor-sharp dialogue that is expertly delivered by some talented actors, including Keanu Reeves. Some of his lines are a little flat, but that's just kind of his style, and we all love him despite that. Or maybe because of it. If you're following along with the subtitles, you can skip the acting to move along the action, but I rarely did, because it was done so well. Plus, the ability to keep control of my character during the dialogue kept me entertained and busy during stretches where I would have begged to speed up the action in lesser games. The depth and excellent delivery of the story made the glitches during these sections even harder to swallow though. Speaking of story, I'm going to keep this simple, but you play as V, a cybernetically enhanced urban mercenary. Most of the game takes place inside the heart of Night City, where greed, indulgence and violence are the blood that keeps it pumping. V is looking to make his mark in the world and leave a legacy that will last forever. Or maybe he just wants to actually live forever. It's a fun story with some great moments. It starts out a little slow, and it made me feel like I did when I was watching the first few episodes of Game of Thrones. I didn't know who was who and what was what, and I had no idea what anyone was talking about most of the time, but I couldn't wait to tune in next week. The gameplay is what you would expect from an open-world action-adventure game in 2020. The beautifully crafted world of Night City is bustling with work for a low-life cyberpunk with a heart of gold. These side missions will keep you busy for days. On the flip side, the main story can be completed in under 30 hours, but the side missions aren't just time fillers. Well, some of them are, but plenty of them give real depth to the main cast of the story, and some of the bit players too. The graphics won't blow you away, but on the PS5 they look very good, and the cyberpunk visuals that manage to look futuristic and vintage at the same time really made me smile. And that's because I've always loved the 80s vision of the future, where the weirdos are the people who don't dress like Billy Idol instead of the other way around. The soundtrack in the game is mostly tailor-made, as you can pick the radio station in each vehicle, but when you aren't racing around the city, the music is a mix of electronic, metal, alternative and hip-hop that fits just fine with the cyberpunk theme. Most of the combat revolves around gunplay, which makes my itchy trigger finger even itchier than usual. You can play it stealthily, which is fun too, but when things go sideways, and they will, the gunplay is quite satisfying. Besides the guns and the myriad of attachments and grenades, you can use your cybernetic upgrades during combat as well. You'll be scanning the urban battlefield with your billion-dollar eye, overriding security cameras, hacking vending machines to distract your enemies, frying the bad guys' cybernetic brains, or simply blowing stuff up. Whichever playstyle you prefer, there is a beefy skill tree that you'll need to upgrade as you go. When you're out and about trying to get from one place to the next, it feels more like GTA than it does Fallout. Driving around Night City in a stolen car or a cool motorcycle is always a good time, although not being able to do a wheelie on the motorcycle is a massive misstep and probably the worst thing about this game, performance be damned. The driving is quite arcadey and on the easy side. It rarely gives that sense that you're completely out of control and that the next red light you run may be your last, but it's still fun. You can fast travel if you want to, but honestly, it felt like an insult to the city. I usually chose to drive because it was so fun and cool to look at. As long as you don't look too closely, that is. Night City is a little cold and doesn't consistently feel as alive as some other open world games. The NPCs that you will speak with largely greet you with disdain and the same few lines of dialogue, mainly F off. That is probably realistic for a place so far gone, but it doesn't beg the player to mingle with the city folk. There's a ton going on here, including crafting, hacking, brain dances, and, most of all, it's really cool. It didn't revolutionise the genre, but it did manage to squeeze its cyberpunk arse onto my top 10 list for the year. Seriously, if you have a PS5 and you like the sound of Fallout mixed with Grand Theft Auto and a pinch of Fight Club, then I think you'll like it too. It's not perfect and the glitches are no joke, especially on PS4, but if you have a next-gen system and you've been waiting to play this since Call Me Maybe was still on the radio, then I suggest you dive in. Besides, if we ever make it to 2077, you know it's going to be glitchy as hell. Might as well get used to it now. And that's the end of this review. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you found it useful in some way or another. If you did, you know what to do. Go down below, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and give that bell a little tickle too, so you're notified whenever we've got new stuff for you to watch. I've been Chris, you've been lovely, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, bye!